Emily Dawson had always hated surprises. At 17, she didn't ask for much. Certainly not this year. No party, no over-the-top gifts, no social media spectacle. She just wanted a quiet dinner with her parents, something stable to anchor her in a world that had felt increasingly shaky over the past few months. But when she stepped into the dining room that evening, she sensed something was wrong. The table was set but too neatly, like it belonged in a catalog. Her mother Victoria had gone all out. Candles, cloth napkins, her grandmother's china, even Emily's favorite lemon ricotta cake resting under a glass dome. The air smelled of roasted rosemary chicken and tension. Her father Mark was already seated, rigid in his chair, hands folded, his eyes avoiding hers. He offered her a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Her mother emerged from the kitchen moments later, wearing red lipstick and a silk blouse she usually saved for more formal occasions. She kissed Emily's forehead and said, "Happy birthday, sweetheart," but her voice was oddly clipped. Emily took her seat slowly, her stomach twisting. She hadn't been imagining it. Something was off. And it wasn't just the forced smiles or her father's nervously cleared throat. "So," Emily ventured, trying to ease the silence. 17. Almost legal. You guys better be nice to me before I'm allowed to sue you both." Victoria's laugh came out as a brittle, one-note chime. "Don't be ridiculous." "I was joking," Emily said, blinking. "Are you guys okay?" Mark and Victoria exchanged a glance. One of those loaded, wordless glances that screamed of late-night arguments behind closed doors. Emily had caught flashes of them over the past few months. Quick silences when she entered the room, voices lowered behind bathroom doors. But she'd brushed it off, telling herself all parents bicker. Tonight, that illusion cracked. "We need to talk," her mother said softly, smoothing the napkin in her lap. She wouldn't meet Emily's eyes. "No," Mark interrupted, shifting forward. "We need to tell her." The candle flames flickered in the heavy silence that followed. Emily's heart began to pound. "Tell me what?" Victoria's lips tightened. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. "We didn't want it to happen like this. Not on your birthday." "Then why is it happening like this?" Emily asked, voice sharper than she intended. "What's going on?" Her father exhaled slowly. "Your mother and I are getting divorced." Emily stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but none came. I don't understand." Her voice faltered. "What are you talking about?" "It's been coming for a long time," Victoria said, as if rehearsing lines from a play she didn't want to perform. "We tried. We really did. But you decided to drop it on me tonight? On my birthday?" "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," Mark said. "The paperwork it went through this morning." A cold, hollow pressure filled Emily's chest. "So it's final?" Her mother looked away. "Yes." The walls of the room seemed to shrink around her. The flicker of candles cast distorted shadows on the walls, turning her parents into strangers. Her appetite vanished. "You lied to me. For months. Pretending everything was normal. You sat there, day after day, knowing this was coming, and you said nothing." "We didn't want to ruin things," Victoria said weakly. "You didn't want to ruin your timeline," Emily snapped. "You were trying to make it out the door before I could ask questions." Mark winced. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" she said. "God. How long has this been going on?" Victoria hesitated. "A long time." "Define long." Her father looked away. "Over a year." Emily stared at them, heart beating so loudly it drowned out everything else. "So this wasn't some sudden decision. You planned this. You waited until I was just old enough to handle the fallout, but not old enough to matter." Her parents exchanged another look, one laced with regret. "Don't look at each other like that," Emily shouted, suddenly on her feet. "You're not a team. Not anymore. I don't even know if you ever were." Her voice cracked, tears threatening behind her eyes. "Why now? Why today?" Victoria's expression changed then. Just slightly. Something flickered behind her eyes. Guilt? Dread? Her voice dropped a register, gentler now. "Because you deserve to know the truth, Emily. All of it. And it starts with this." Emily blinked. "What do you mean?" But her mother didn't answer right away. She glanced toward Mark and he gave her a slight, reluctant nod. Something passed between them, an unspoken agreement. Victoria took a deep breath. We're not just divorcing because we fell out of love. It's not about arguments or drifting apart. It's deeper. Emily's breath hitched. Deeper how? Her mother hesitated. There's something we've kept from you. Something about our past. About your family. The room spun. What kind of secret? Emily whispered, though part of her didn't want the answer. About your Aunt Claire, Mark said quietly. About her disappearance. The air seemed to leave the room. Emily's stomach turned to ice. Claire? The one who went missing when I was little? Her mother nodded. She wasn't just my sister, Emily. She was the reason everything started to fall apart. Emily felt like the floor had cracked beneath her. A black hole yawned in the center of her life, and suddenly everything, every word, every glance, every silence, made a terrible kind of sense. This isn't happening, she muttered. We're telling you now, Victoria said, because we can't keep hiding it, not with what's coming. Emily's voice shook. What's coming? Victoria's eyes glistened. The truth. And once it's out, everything changes. Emily backed away slowly, her mind buzzing with questions she couldn't form. Her birthday dinner sat untouched on the table, steam curling into the air like ghosts, and somewhere deep in her gut, she knew. This wasn't just the end of her parents' marriage. It was the end of everything she thought she knew. The morning after her birthday felt like waking up inside someone else's life. Emily stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush idle in her mouth, staring at her reflection as if it might offer answers. Her eyes were puffy, cheeks blotched from the tears she'd barely tried to hide the night before. Downstairs, the house was unnervingly quiet. No cheerful, happy birthday banners. No leftover cake crumbs. Just the heavy, lingering silence of a truth unspoken, still pulsing just beneath the surface. She hadn't slept. Couldn't. Not after what they'd told her. Her parents were divorcing, and somehow it had something to do with her Aunt Claire, the enigmatic sister of her mother who had vanished over a decade ago without a trace. Claire, the shadowy name whispered only when guests weren't around. Claire, who stared out from a single faded photograph tucked in the back of an old album. Emily had always been told she died, or disappeared. Depending on who she asked, it was either a tragic accident or a mystery no one wanted to dig into. But now, Claire's name had surfaced again like a drowned secret, and Emily wasn't going to let it slip back into silence. She patted downstairs, drawn by the distant sound of clinking dishes in the kitchen. Her mother stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing a plate with more force than necessary. The early morning sun streamed through the windows, softening the hard lines of her face, but her tension betrayed her. She looked up as Emily entered, drying her hands on a dish towel. "You're up early," Victoria said gently. "I didn't sleep," Emily replied. "You shouldn't be surprised." Victoria offered a sad smile. "No, I'm not." They stood in silence for a moment. The kettle whistled in the background, forgotten. Emily finally spoke. "You said last night that the divorce wasn't just about you and Dad, that it was because of Claire. What did you mean?" Her mother flinched at the name. She moved slowly to silence the kettle, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. A peace offering, perhaps. She slid one across the counter to Emily. "She was my sister," Victoria said finally, her voice hollow. "But she was also someone I didn't really know. Not in the end." Emily took the mug. Not because she needed the tea, but because she needed to hold something steady. "What happened between you?" Victoria leaned against the counter, staring into her cup. "We were close once. As kids, we were practically inseparable. Claire was the wild one, fearless, magnetic. People were drawn to her like moths. Especially men." Emily's fingers curled tighter around the mug. "Including Dad?" Her mother looked up then, pain flashing across her face. "Yes, including your father." The words hung there, thick and sour. Emily's heart sank. She had suspected, feared. That was what her mother meant, but hearing it aloud made it real. "I don't understand," she said. "When did it happen?" Victoria closed her eyes. You were 6. Your father and I were going through a rough patch. He was traveling constantly for work, and Claire was staying with us for a while. Why? She said she needed a break from the city, said she was trying to clean up her life. Claire always had a flair for self-destruction, drinking, risky relationships, getting involved with dangerous people. I didn't think twice about letting her stay. I thought maybe she'd change. Victoria paused, her eyes glassy. But it was me who got blindsided. While I was working late nights at the gallery, she and your father, they started seeing each other, secretly, behind my back, for months. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Did he admit it? Not at first. I found a letter, handwritten, tucked into one of his suit pockets. It was graphic, emotional. It wasn't just sex. She loved him, or thought she did. Oh my God. Emily leaned against the fridge, trying to steady herself. I confronted him. He denied it, of course, but eventually he broke down and told me everything. Said it was a mistake, said she had manipulated him. And then Claire disappeared, Emily said softly. Victoria looked at her. 2 weeks later, vanished. No note, no goodbye, just gone. Emily's mind reeled. You think that was because of the affair? I don't know. Her mother's voice trembled. It was always hard to know what Claire wanted. Sometimes I think she left to punish me. Other times, I wonder if she was running from something darker. Emily's mind churned with questions. Did you ever try to find her? Of course I did. I filed a missing persons report. Hired a private investigator. But there was nothing. No credit card activity, no bank withdrawals, no social media. It was like she never existed. Emily's eyes narrowed. But why didn't you tell me this before? Victoria's face crumpled. Because I didn't want you to grow up hating your father, or thinking you came from a broken home. I wanted to protect you. From the truth? Emily snapped. You were protecting yourself. You didn't want to answer hard questions, so you turned my aunt into a ghost and hoped I'd forget she ever existed. That's not fair. No? Emily's voice rose. You let me believe Claire was some tragic, forgotten figure. But she was right here, in this house, with my dad, and you just erased her. Victoria stared at her, stricken. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. Did you ever forgive him? Her mother took a long breath. I thought I did. For your sake. We went to therapy, tried to rebuild, but I never really let it go. And he never really stopped lying. The trust was gone. Emily's hands trembled. So all this time, every birthday, every holiday, I was living in the ruins of your broken marriage. Tears slipped down Victoria's cheeks. I wanted better for you, Emily. I didn't want you to carry our mistakes. Well, Emily said bitterly, it's a little late for that. She turned and stormed out of the kitchen, the mug forgotten on the counter. She didn't know where she was going. All she knew was that she needed air, space, distance. Claire wasn't just a missing person anymore. She was a living wound, a storm that had passed through their family and left everything fractured in its wake. And Emily, whether she wanted to or not, was now standing directly in its path. The days that followed felt surreal, like time was stretching and contracting in strange ways. Emily wandered through school hallways in a daze, the noise around her muffled by the whirlwind inside her mind. Teachers spoke, friends laughed, bells rang, and none of it seemed to reach her. Every corner of her thoughts was occupied by one name, Claire. She couldn't stop thinking about her aunt, this woman who had haunted the background of her childhood like a whisper. Her mother's beautiful, rebellious sister. The family member no one spoke of. The tragedy everyone accepted without explanation. But now, Claire had shape, a presence, and more than anything, she had secrets. Emily began piecing together scraps from memory, things that once seemed insignificant. Like the single photograph in their hallway, her mother and a woman with dark hair and mischievous eyes, both laughing in the sun, their arms slung around each other. Emily had assumed that woman was a friend. But now she knew better. That was Claire. She started asking questions. cautiously, quietly. She didn't trust her parents to tell her everything, not after what they'd kept hidden for so long. So she went to the only other place she could think of, her grandmother's house. It was a 2-hour bus ride to the sleepy suburb where Victoria and Claire had grown up. Her grandmother, Evelyn, opened the door in her usual quilted robe, a surprised but gentle smile on her face. "Emily, darling, what a surprise." Her voice carried the same polished warmth as her daughter's, though her eyes were sharper, quicker to read between lines. "I just wanted to visit," Emily lied. Evelyn stepped aside. "Well, you're always welcome." They sat in the sunroom, sipping ginger tea and nibbling on lemon wafers. The walls were lined with sepia-toned family photos, but Claire's presence had been systematically erased. Emily noticed an odd space on a shelf where a frame might have been, a blank spot in the photo collage above the fireplace. "Grandma," she said, as casually as she could manage, "do you ever think about Aunt Claire?" The question dropped like a stone in a pond. Evelyn didn't flinch, but her smile faded. "I try not to," she said simply. "Why?" "Because it hurts," Evelyn replied. She was like fire, beautiful, bright, but dangerous to touch. Emily waited, watching the lines of pain creep into her grandmother's expression. "She never liked rules," Evelyn said finally. "Even as a child, she was wild. Always testing boundaries, always needing more. Attention, drama, power. Your mother, she was the grounded one. Sensible. Claire hated that. Hated being second best at anything. She and Mom were close, right?" "In a way," Evelyn said carefully. "Until they weren't." Emily didn't press. Not yet. But her mind kept circling back to that last sentence. Until they weren't. She left with a heavy heart and a head full of questions. But when she got home, the strangest thing happened. There was a package waiting on the porch. No return address, no markings, just a small box, carefully wrapped in pale lavender paper, the exact shade of the dress Claire wore in that photo from the hallway. Emily stared at it, heart racing. She picked it up slowly, half expecting it to vanish in her hands. Inside was a delicate silver hair comb, shaped like a crescent moon. Vintage. Beautiful, and strangely familiar. She took it inside, hands trembling, and dug through the hallway drawer until she found the old family photo album. After flipping through worn pages and brittle memories, she found the picture. Claire standing next to her mother on the beach, laughing, wearing that same silver moon comb in her hair. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She ran to her mother's room, bursting in without knocking. "Mom," she said, holding out the box. "This was on the porch. Today." Victoria took one look at the comb and turned pale. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "I told you, it was just sitting there. No name, no card, just left like a message." Her mother looked at her, horror swimming behind her eyes. "That belonged to Claire." "I know." Victoria sank onto the edge of the bed. "I haven't seen this in years. I thought it disappeared with her." Emily stared at her. What if she didn't disappear? What if she just left? "She's dead, Emily," Victoria said, almost too quickly. "She's gone." "Then who sent this?" Victoria had no answer. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Her bedroom felt colder than usual, the shadows longer, the silence almost too perfect. She kept glancing at the hair comb resting on her dresser, its metallic curve glinting in the moonlight. Around 2 a.m., she couldn't take it anymore. She got up, turned on her desk lamp, and opened the laptop her dad had given her for school. She typed Claire Dawson disappearance into the search bar and hit enter. Most of the articles were brief, one-liners from local news outlets. Young woman vanishes after late-night call. Family mourns disappearance of beloved sister. No follow-up. No investigation. Just a slow fade from public consciousness. But one thread caught her eye. A forum post over a decade old titled "Saw Claire Dawson the Other Night," or "Someone Who Looked Just Like Her." The user described a woman in a bar outside Portland, Oregon, weeks after Claire had supposedly vanished, arguing with a man in a leather jacket. She'd stormed out, leaving behind a cocktail glass with lipstick on the rim. He left moments later. The comments dismissed it as paranoia, a prank, wishful thinking, but Emily knew better. Something about the timing felt too close, too precise. She clicked deeper into the forum. The same user had posted a second time, months later, claiming they'd seen the woman from before in a roadside diner near the Idaho border. She was using a different name, Elena, but the poster swore it was her. Emily printed the posts, folded them into her journal, and returned to bed. But just as she turned out the light, she saw it. Another package, sitting on her windowsill this time. Smaller, wrapped in black paper. Her pulse thundered as she opened the latch and pulled it in. The box was light, almost too light. Inside was a note, written in delicate cursive. "You're closer than you think, but some truths should stay buried." No signature, no clue who had sent it. But the message was unmistakable. Claire wasn't gone. She was watching. And if she had returned, then the story Emily had been told her entire life was a lie. Emily noticed the moving truck first. It was early Saturday morning, the kind of gray-skied, wind-bitten day that made everything feel heavier. She had just poured herself a cup of coffee, her third since sunrise, and wandered onto the porch wrapped in her old hoodie. Her mind was still spinning from the note she received just days ago. "You're closer than you think, but some truths should stay buried." It sat in her nightstand drawer now, folded and reread 100 times, like an accusation she couldn't outrun. And that's when she saw it. Across the street, a large white truck rumbling beside the vacant Tudor-style house that had been empty for months. Movers carried in furniture wrapped in plastic and boxes marked in bold black ink. A sleek black SUV idled in the driveway. Then the driver's side opened and out stepped a man. He was tall, maybe in his early 40s, with dark hair and a tailored wool coat. He walked with an easy confidence, the kind that didn't try too hard but drew attention anyway. He spoke to one of the movers, gesturing toward the upstairs windows. Emily squinted. There was something oddly familiar about him, though she couldn't place what. She watched him for a while until she realized he had turned and was looking directly at her. She froze. He smiled and gave a polite wave. Feeling awkward, she lifted her hand and waved back. Then she went inside quickly, her heart unexpectedly racing. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. Emily answered it to find the same man standing on the porch, holding a bottle of wine and a small tray of cookies in clear cellophane. "Hi there," he said, voice smooth, warm. "I'm Thomas Collins. Just moved in across the street. Thought I'd do the neighborly thing and say hello." Emily blinked. "Oh, hi, I'm Emily." His eyes sparkled. "Emily. Pretty name. You must be Victoria's daughter?" She nodded, though something about him knowing her mom's name gave her pause. "Yeah. She's not home right now." "Ah, no problem." He handed her the cookies. "Just a small gesture. I make a mean double chocolate chip." She took the tray, still unsure. "Thanks." He hesitated a moment, then said, "You know, I think I may have known your aunt." Emily's stomach dropped. "Claire?" He smiled again, this time softer. "Yes, Claire Dawson. If she's your aunt, then this might be quite a coincidence." Emily stepped back, tension snapping to life in her chest. "How did you know her?" He seemed to consider the question carefully. "We met years ago. I was working in real estate at the time, and she came to look at a property in Silverwood. Striking woman. Unforgettable, really. We kept in touch for a while." Emily stared. "What was she like?" Mr. Collins looked past her, as if searching memory. "Complicated. She had a charm about her, like someone who had secrets but dared you to find them out. She used to say the world was divided into two kinds of people, those who buried the past and those who dug it up." Emily's breath caught. That phrase. It sounded eerily close to the note she had received. "She just disappeared one day," she said slowly. "We thought she was dead." His gaze sharpened almost imperceptibly. "Did you?" Silence swelled between them. Emily forced a polite smile. "Thanks for the cookies," Mr. Collins chuckled. "Of course. I'll let you get back to your day." As he stepped off the porch, she closed the door and immediately locked it. Then she peered through the window blinds, watching him stroll casually back to his house. That night, she Googled him. Thomas Collins, Silverwood Real Estate. The name popped up in a few articles from 10 years ago, mostly about property development in rural towns. Then, nothing. No recent activity. No LinkedIn. No social media footprint. It was as if he had vanished and only just now re-emerged. Her instincts screamed that something was off. She told her mother about him over dinner. Victoria stirred her soup absently, eyes distant. Collins. That name does sound familiar. You think he really knew Claire? Emily asked. I don't know. She knew a lot of people. Most of them left chaos in her wake. He said he worked in real estate. Mentioned something about a property in Silverwood. Victoria's spoon paused mid-air. Silverwood? Yeah. Her mother's face went pale. Claire bought a cabin in Silverwood before she disappeared. No one could figure out why. She wasn't exactly the nature-loving type. Emily leaned in. Do you think he had something to do with her vanishing? Victoria looked at her sharply. Don't start down that path, Emily. You don't know what kind of people Claire got involved with. You don't know what they're capable of. Emily didn't sleep much that night. She lay awake, watching the shadows of tree branches dance across her ceiling. Around 3 a.m., she saw a flicker of light outside. She got up, heart pounding, and crept to the window. Across the street, Mr. Collins's living room was lit, and he was standing in it, shirtless, holding a drink, staring out his own window. Staring directly at her house, she ducked quickly behind the curtain. In the following days, Mr. Collins made himself increasingly visible. He waved whenever he saw Emily, dropped by once to offer a business card for his consulting firm, though she noticed the number on the card didn't match the one listed online. Another time, she saw him in the grocery store, chatting animatedly with her mother near the produce aisle, like old friends rekindled. And still, nothing about his behavior ever quite added up. One afternoon, while walking the dog, Emily noticed something odd. A manila folder peeking out of Mr. Collins's trash bin. She glanced around, no one in sight, then reached in and pulled it out. Inside were printed articles, newspaper clippings, all about Claire Dawson. Photos, notes scribbled in the margins. One page was even circled in red ink, a birth certificate application with Emily's name on it. Emily felt the color drain from her face. Mr. Collins wasn't just interested in her family. He was investigating them. When she confronted her mother that night, Victoria sat frozen at the kitchen table, her hands trembling around her wine glass. You said you didn't know him, Emily said. I thought I didn't. Then why is he stalking our family? Why does he have my birth certificate? Victoria closed her eyes. Because he's not just some neighbor, Emily. Then who is he? Her mother finally met her gaze, voice barely audible. I think he's connected to Claire. More than he's letting on. Maybe even... Emily waited, heart pounding. Maybe even family. It started with the loose floorboard. Emily wasn't snooping. Not exactly. She had gone into her mother's room to borrow a sweater, one of those soft, oversized knits Victoria rarely wore but refused to throw away. The air in the room was heavy with her mother's perfume. That familiar mix of jasmine and something faintly medicinal, like expensive soap. Emily crossed to the wardrobe and opened the door, searching through hangers when her foot caught on something uneven. She crouched, pushing aside the edge of the rug, revealing a warped, discolored plank in the wooden floor. Curiosity flared. She slipped her fingernails beneath the edge and pried it up. It gave with a soft creak, revealing a shallow compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside was a single object wrapped in linen, old, worn, tied with a red ribbon, a journal. Emily lifted it out with trembling hands. The leather cover was cracked, soft from age and use. No name, no title, just a weighty silence pressing around it. She untied the ribbon and opened it to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable, her mother's, but the tone was nothing like the woman she knew. Claire came to me again last night like a shadow slipping between the walls. She said the pact still holds. I want to believe she's gone, but part of me wonders if she ever left. Emily flipped to the next page, heart pounding. We were 15 when it happened. No one was supposed to find out. We buried it, along with the truth. Claire made me swear. Blood to blood. But secrets rot, even underground. She froze. What happened? What had they done? The entries were written like riddles, layered with metaphors and half-memories. Some passages were written in code, symbols, numbers, underlined words. She didn't understand them, not yet, but they pulsed with dread. Page after page blurred together, references to a lost girl, a night in the forest, the sound of screaming. Then, halfway through, a single sentence underlined in red ink. What we buried wasn't just her body, it was the truth about what Claire became. Emily shut the journal, her breath catching in her throat. This wasn't just an old diary, it was a confession, a breadcrumb trail to the most guarded corners of her family's history. And Claire wasn't just a ghost in their lives, she was a storm they had tried to outrun for years. Emily waited until nightfall to confront her mother. They sat at the kitchen table, the journal between them like a bomb with no timer. I found this, Emily said, her voice calm but shaking underneath. In your floor. Victoria stared at it, her face unreadable. Why did you hide it? Her mother didn't answer. You wrote about a blood pact. About something you and Claire did as teenagers. Something you buried. Victoria exhaled. Slow and shallow. I told myself if I wrote it down, it would take away its power. I never meant for anyone to read it. What did you bury? Silence. Was it a person, Mom? Victoria's eyes shimmered with something. Fear? Guilt? You don't understand, she whispered. We were just girls. We were scared. Stupid. Then tell me what happened. Victoria stood up abruptly, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. It was summer, 1997. We went to a party near the lake. There was a boy. Claire flirted with him, then changed her mind. He didn't. She swallowed hard. He followed her into the woods. Emily's skin prickled. I found her screaming, Victoria continued. I tried to stop him. I hit him. He fell. He didn't get back up. Emily stared wide-eyed. You killed him? No, I don't know. Maybe. But he stopped moving. Claire said we had to hide it. Said no one would believe us. That they'd say she asked for it. So we dragged him into the ravine, covered the body, swore we'd never speak of it again. A blood pact? Emily whispered. Her mother nodded, eyes wet with memory. We cut our palms and swore. That night changed everything. Claire was never the same again. Emily's mind reeled. The journal now felt heavier than before. Not just paper and ink, but the weight of decades. What happened after? She disappeared 2 years later, right before she turned 20. She left a note, said she was done living in shadows. I thought it meant she was going to the police. I waited every day for someone to come for us, but no one did. Because she didn't tell them, Emily said. She used it. Victoria looked up. She blackmailed Dad with it, Emily said. Didn't she? Her mother went pale. Dad told me. Claire threatened to expose what happened unless he gave her something. Love, loyalty, sex. Victoria collapsed into the chair again, aged a decade in seconds. I thought I could protect you from her legacy, she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. But she's always been 2 steps ahead. Emily stared at the journal. Claire's handwriting didn't appear in it. Not yet. But the deeper Emily read, the more she suspected something unspoken. Claire didn't just vanish into the dark, she became it. Emily hadn't looked her father in the eye since her birthday. Their interactions had been hollow, simple exchanges like, pass the salt or I'll be home late, but never anything more. The weight of what she had learned about Claire's betrayal and his part in it made every word taste sour. But after reading her mother's journal, after hearing the story of that night by the lake and the blood pact that followed, Emily couldn't stop thinking about one thing. Her father had never denied the affair, but he had never explained it either. Now, as the house stood quiet under the weight of another cold night, she found herself outside his home office door, her heart thudding against her ribs. She knocked once. A pause. Then, "Come in." He was seated at his desk, still in his work shirt, sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened. The lamplight caught the silver streaks in his hair. He looked tired, but not just from the day. From years. She walked in and sat across from him. "I need you to tell me the truth," she said. He looked up, startled by her seriousness. "I know about Claire. I know about the affair. I know about what happened when they were kids. And I know you've been hiding a lot more than you're saying." He set his pen down and leaned back slowly. "I think she blackmailed you," Emily said. "And I think you gave in. Not because you loved her, but because she knew something about Mom, about what they did." He stared at her, silent, as if measuring whether it was time. Then he sighed. "She didn't just blackmail me, Emily. She hunted me." Emily blinked. He continued. "Your mother and I were struggling, that much is true. But I never looked at Claire, not until she made sure I had no choice." "What does that mean?" "It started with letters. Anonymous at first, then photos. Someone had been following me, us, taking pictures, sending threats. 'Confess or we expose everything,' the letters said. But I didn't know what the everything was." He paused. "I thought it was about an affair I never had. I thought someone was trying to frame me. But then the letters started including names, specific names." "Claire," Emily whispered. He nodded. "She admitted it. She said she had dirt on your mom. Something that happened when they were teens. And if I didn't cooperate, she'd go to the police. She'd go public, ruin everything." "And you cooperated?" Emily's voice rose. "With your wife's sister?" His eyes welled up, red at the corners. "I was weak. But I didn't fall in love with Claire. I was manipulated. She didn't want affection. She wanted control. Power. She treated intimacy like a weapon. And every time I thought it was over, she'd find a new way to twist the knife." Emily felt sick. Her father had always been her anchor. Steady, reliable, almost boring in his predictability. Now, he looked like a man who had been pulled under the surface of a life he no longer understood. "She wanted something else," he said softly. "Something bigger. She hinted at an inheritance. Said there was money your mother didn't even know about. Said it was tied to blood. Legacy. You." Emily's heart jumped. "Me?" "She never said what she meant. Just that you were the key." He leaned forward now, his voice thick with regret. "Your mother didn't want you to know what happened between them. She thought she could protect you from it all. Claire, the past, the inheritance. But it's always been circling us. And Claire made sure we'd never outrun it." Silence hung in the room like smoke. Emily looked at him, trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the man who had allowed Claire to tear through their lives like a razor. She hated him. For his weakness, his lies, but part of her understood it too. Claire hadn't seduced him. She had cornered him and used him. "Did you love her?" Emily asked. He shook his head immediately. "No, I feared her. I hated her. And when she disappeared, part of me was relieved. That's the truth." Emily stood, her chest heavy. "I believe you," she said, but her voice felt hollow. He looked up at her, pleading. "Emily, if I could go back." "You can't," she said, cutting him off. "But you can stop lying now. From here on out." She turned and walked out of the room before he could say anything else. That night, Emily sat in her room, staring at the journal again. She flipped back to the coded entries, symbols and scrawled names she hadn't recognized before. But one stood out now. TC, written in the margins beside the words, "He'll never know, he's just the echo, not the air." Emily's blood ran cold. TC, Thomas Collins, the neighbor. The man who said he knew Claire. The man watching her family unfold from across the street. Claire hadn't just planned the affair, she had planned the aftermath. And someone was still following her script. The journal had become Emily's obsession. She carried it everywhere now, tucked inside her backpack, hidden beneath her mattress at night, never out of reach. It wasn't just paper anymore. It was her only link to a version of her mother she didn't recognize, and an aunt who had turned their entire world upside down without ever stepping into a room. The more Emily read, the less she slept, and the more she decoded, the more certain she became. The story her mother had told her, the one about that summer night and the boy in the woods, was only half the truth. She sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, the journal opened in front of her, surrounded by notes, timelines, and sketches she'd drawn from the entries. Red ink circled words like ravine, Eli, blood, and mirror pact. Underneath, she'd scribbled her own guesses. Eli equals victim, mirror pact equals code of silence. But tonight, a new detail snagged her attention. The date, August 17, 1997. She had seen it before, but this time she matched it against something she'd found in the attic days earlier. An old photo album filled with images of her mother and Claire as teenagers. There was a Polaroid tucked between the pages, faintly labeled on the back in fading pen. That night, before the woods. It showed Claire in cut-off shorts and a tank top, smirking at the camera. Next to her was a boy. Dark hair, lean frame, an arm slung lazily over Claire's shoulder. His name wasn't written, but the feeling Emily got looking at him made her stomach turn. This was him. Eli. The boy who, according to her mother, had never walked out of the forest. Emily turned the journal back to one entry that had puzzled her before but now sent chills through her bones. We buried him deep enough, but the scream still echoes. Sometimes I still hear it in the trees. Claire doesn't flinch anymore. I don't think she hears it at all. And below that, in her mother's shaky scrawl. It changed her, that night. She stopped being my sister and became something else. Emily pressed her fingers to the words. A memory surfaced. She had been maybe 9 or 10, chasing fireflies in the backyard when she wandered too close to the tree line. Her mother's voice had snapped like a whip. Don't go in there! It had been sharp, panicked, more than the usual overprotection. She never understood why, until now. The woods behind their house were just yards from where Claire and her mother had grown up, from where Eli had vanished, from where a body might still be buried. Emily stood up, a sick certainty coiling in her gut. She grabbed the flashlight from her desk drawer and her sneakers from the closet. If she was going to uncover the truth, she had to go there. The woods were colder than they should have been for early autumn. Branches scraped at her arms as she picked her way through the brush, guided only by the pale beam of the flashlight and the directions from the journal. Follow the creek until it forks, then 5 steps toward the mossy stone. It felt like a treasure map. But instead of gold, she expected bones. She found the creek, then the fork. The moss-covered stone was real. Beside it, a dip in the earth that looked unnatural, sunken, like something had shifted beneath the soil over time. Her heart thundered. She dropped to her knees and brushed aside leaves and dirt. The earth had hardened, packed over the years, but she kept digging. Her fingers struck something. Wood? No, plastic. A box. She dragged it out, coated in grime. When she pried it open, she didn't find bones. She found photographs, stacks of them. Most were of Claire, some with her mother, some with people Emily didn't recognize. But in the last photo, Claire stood over something dark, shapeless, on the forest floor. Her eyes stared directly into the camera, and her expression, Emily recoiled. Claire wasn't afraid. She looked triumphant. Back at home, Emily stared at the photos laid out across her bed, the journal beside them, open to another entry she hadn't understood until now. Claire said she'd cleaned it up, said no one would find him. But the way she smiled when she said it, it wasn't relief. It was pride. And then, if she ever comes back, I won't be ready. I don't think I'll survive it. Emily clutched the journal to her chest, realizing something she hadn't dared consider until now. Claire's disappearance wasn't a retreat. It was a reset. She hadn't vanished in fear. She was waiting for the right moment to return. And if that moment was now, if she was already watching from the shadows, then the past wasn't done with them, not even close. Emily sat at the kitchen table with the photos spread in front of her like a crime scene. The one that haunted her the most was the photo of Claire standing over what looked like a body in the woods, her posture calm, her eyes fixed on the camera. It wasn't a picture someone took of Claire, it was one she clearly posed for. Every instinct in Emily screamed that her mother had known. The journal confirmed it. The hidden box in the woods proved it. Now, there was no more pretending. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the clock above the sink. Her mother walked in, holding a mug of tea still in her robe. She paused when she saw the photos. "What are those?" she asked carefully. "You tell me," Emily said. Her mother placed the mug down and slowly approached the table, her hands trembling ever so slightly. "Where did you get them?" Emily didn't answer. She just fixed her with a look, equal parts fury and heartbreak. "I read the journal. I followed the map. I found the box in the woods. I know about Eli, about the pact. About everything. And now I need to know what else you're hiding." Her mother sat down slowly, her face pale. "Emily, listen to me." "No, you listen," Emily snapped. "Every lie you've told, every secret you've kept, it all ends now. I want the truth. All of it. Why did you divorce Dad? What does Claire really want? And what's this inheritance everyone keeps hinting at?" Her mother swallowed, then nodded once, like she'd been waiting for this confrontation. "I didn't divorce your father because of what he did. I divorced him to protect you." Emily scoffed. "Protect me from what, Claire?" Her mother looked her dead in the eye. "From the blood money she left behind." That silenced Emily. "What money?" she asked, her voice quieter. "There's a trust," her mother said, her voice weary now. "Left behind in Claire's name, created by a shell company she somehow gained control of before she disappeared. She funneled millions into it. God knows where she got it. But the clause in the trust is clear. Her biological child inherits everything if she's declared legally dead before the child turns 18. Emily's blood turned cold. And you didn't tell me because I didn't want that blood money anywhere near you. And Claire, if she's still alive, would do anything to get it back, including manipulating you." Emily leaned forward. "So the divorce was to legally sever our family from the inheritance, to break any claim she could make that you were raised under my identity. It was desperate, but I didn't know what else to do." Emily stared at her mother, stunned. "You wanted to erase me from the will?" "I wanted to erase you from her game." Her mother looked so tired now, not just from the conversation, but from years of living with the fear of a sister who refused to stay buried, literally or metaphorically. "She's always been dangerous," her mother whispered, "charming on the surface, but underneath, she was capable of terrible things. Manipulation, violence, even murder if it meant getting what she wanted. That night in the woods, she didn't just cross a line, she erased it." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "And Dad? He didn't know about the inheritance at first. He thought she just wanted to destroy us out of spite. When he realized it was about money, about you, he panicked. That's when we started preparing for the divorce. We thought if we acted quickly enough, we could sever any legal ties before she resurfaced." "But she's already resurfaced," Emily said, sliding the letter across the table, the one written in Claire's handwriting. "Postmarked days ago. She's back, she never left, she's been watching us. Maybe all along." Her mother picked up the letter, her fingers shaking. Her face crumpled as she read the single sentence. "I never left. I've just been waiting for the truth to come out." She looked at Emily like she was seeing her for the first time, not as a child, but as someone on the front lines of a decades-old war. "You don't understand what she's capable of," her mother said. Emily shook her head. "No, you don't understand what I'm capable of." She stood, her voice clear now, unafraid. "I'm not going to be a pawn in her game, or yours. I want to know everything. No more half-truths. No more protecting me. If I'm part of this legacy, I'm going to face it head-on." Her mother looked stricken, torn between pride and fear. "You sound just like her," she said softly. Emily turned toward the stairs, pausing only once. "No," she replied. "I sound like someone who's tired of running." It arrived on a Monday morning, tucked in with the usual stack of junk mail and overdue bills, unassuming, cream-colored, and hand-addressed in dark blue ink. Emily didn't notice it at first. She was too busy rummaging through the pile for a college brochure she'd been expecting, still half lost in her thoughts after the explosive conversation with her mother. But something about the envelope caught her eye. It wasn't the paper, though it was smoother than usual. It was the handwriting. Something about the way the E in her name curled at the top. Something achingly familiar. She froze, turned the envelope over. No return address. But the postmark? Postmarked 2 days ago. From the next town over. Emily's hands shook as she slit the envelope open with a butter knife. Inside was a single sheet of thick stationery. Unlined. No greeting. No signature. Just a single sentence. Scrawled in looping, deliberate cursive. I never left. I've just been waiting for the truth to come out. Her breath caught in her throat. She read it again. And again. The air around her suddenly felt thinner. She knew the handwriting. Not from letters, but from the journal. From the margin notes Claire had scrawled in the back pages, sometimes mocking, sometimes cryptic, always bold and confident. This was her. It was Claire. She was alive. She was close. Emily's legs moved on their own, carrying her into the living room, where her mother was sitting with a half-empty cup of coffee, her eyes sunken with exhaustion. Another letter, Emily said, holding it out like a weapon. Her mother took it, read the line once, and went very still. This was mailed 2 days ago, Emily added. She's not gone. She never was. Her mother looked up at her, and for the first time, Emily saw something deeper than fear in her eyes. It was dread. Pure, unfiltered dread. She's playing with us, her mother said. She always loved games. Leaving just enough clues, just enough fear to make you question what's real. Emily grabbed the letter back. No, this isn't a game anymore. This is a message. She went upstairs to her room and shut the door, locking it behind her. The weight of the letter pressed down on her thoughts like a brick. If Claire was alive, and close enough to mail something locally, then the stakes were even higher than she thought. Because if Claire wanted her inheritance, she needed to be declared dead before Emily's 18th birthday, and Emily had less than a year left. The countdown had begun. That night, Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. What did Claire mean by waiting for the truth to come out? What truth hadn't already been unearthed? She'd already discovered the affair, the pact, the buried box in the woods. She'd uncovered the inheritance, the clause, the bitter betrayal. She had learned that her life had been engineered for someone else's benefit. What more could possibly be hidden? Unless a thought took root. One she didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't shake. What if Claire didn't just want the money? What if she wanted Emily? Not for love. Not for redemption, but as a living link to power, to legacy, to leverage. A knock on the window made her sit bolt upright. Her curtains were drawn. Her heart thundered. Another knock, softer this time. She hesitated, then inched to the window and peeled the curtain back just enough to see. Nothing. No one. Just the night. Still, quiet, dark. But something was there. On the windowsill. A small envelope. She hadn't noticed it before. Her hands trembled as she unlatched the window and pulled it inside. It was identical to the one from earlier. But this time, the message inside was different. Happy birthday, early. The truth is in the fire. Emily's birthday was still months away, but Claire clearly wasn't following calendars. Only agendas. And the fire? Emily's thoughts flew to the one photo in the box she hadn't shown her mother, the one where Claire stood over what looked like a charred figure in the forest clearing. Burned. Obscured. Unrecognizable. What had they done to the body? Was there even a body? Was Eli dead at all? The questions spiraled, wild and endless. One thing was now certain. Claire hadn't just returned. She was laying the groundwork for something bigger, something that would force all the hidden truths to the surface, burned or buried, Emily folded the letter and slipped it into the journal, now a sacred archive of the past. She whispered into the silence of her room, "Then let the truth come out." And if Claire was listening, wherever she was, Emily hoped she knew she wasn't the only one playing the game anymore. The envelope sat on her desk like a sleeping animal, still, quiet, waiting to pounce. Emily stared at it for hours. She didn't open it when it first arrived, just stared at the plain white label, her name printed neatly in sans serif, almost sterile font. Emily Graves. The DNA test had been her secret, ordered under a fake name, sent to a friend's address, then picked up a week later like some clandestine package. She'd mailed her saliva in a test tube with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, already suspecting the truth. But suspicions weren't facts. And now that the results were here, she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Was she ready for this? Could you ever really be ready to discover that your life might be a fabrication? She thought about Claire's first letter. "I never left. I've just been waiting for the truth to come out." And the second, "Happy birthday early. The truth is in the fire." Claire wanted her to find the truth. That much was clear. But why? Emily took a breath, tore open the envelope. Her eyes scanned the lines of data, the percentage breakdowns, the red box marked "Potential parental match detected." Biological mother, Claire Graves, probability of relationship, 99.9999998%. The room tilted. She stared at the paper as if it were written in a foreign language, but the words kept repeating like a curse. Claire is your mother, not your aunt, not a distant ghost, not the tragic figure lost to a mysterious disappearance. Her mother. Emily backed away from the desk, her hands clutching the paper as if trying to strangle the truth out of it. A million questions exploded in her mind. Why had no one told her? Why pretend? Why would her real mother vanish and let someone else raise her and then come back now? But she already knew the answer. Because Claire never left. She'd just been waiting. This wasn't about a daughter's love. This was about a daughter's value, the trust, the clause, the inheritance, the legal cutoff. Claire needed Emily to inherit that money before her 18th birthday, but now the timing made sense in a different, more sinister way. Emily was born into a plan. She was a piece on Claire's board. Her entire existence, her identity, had been shaped by a lie. And her mother, the woman she had called mom for 17 years, had let her believe it. Emily stormed out of her room, letter clenched in her hand, down the stairs where her mother was pouring coffee like it was any other morning. "You lied to me," Emily said without preamble. Her mother turned, eyebrows lifting, eyes cautious. "I lie to you every time I say you're safe," she said softly. "You'll have to be more specific." Emily slapped the DNA report on the table. Her mother didn't even flinch. "I know," she whispered. "You knew." Emily's voice cracked. "You let me grow up not knowing who I really am?" "I raised you," her mother said, pain tightening her voice. "I loved you like my own, because you were my own. Claire, she gave birth to you, yes, but she didn't want you. She said it herself. You were leverage, something to use, a way to control me, to trap your father, to stake her claim." Emily staggered backward, her world unspooling. "So you stole me?" she whispered. "No," her mother said. "She left you. She disappeared without a word. I didn't even know I was pregnant until she was gone. You were abandoned, like everything else she used." Tears pressed behind Emily's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I'm a pawn," she said numbly, "just a piece in her game." "No, Emily," her mother said, stepping forward, her voice thick. "You're the queen. That's why she wants you now. Because if you survive this, you're the one holding the power." Emily looked down at the test result one last time. Claire wasn't dead. She was watching. And she wasn't just coming for the money. She was coming for her. The documents were old. The paper yellowed at the edges and marked with notary stamps faded from time. They had been hidden inside a fireproof lockbox buried in the back of her mother's closet, behind old sweaters and forgotten photo albums, like a relic nobody wanted to remember. But Emily had found them. She wasn't looking for them. She was looking for something, anything, that might explain why Claire would fake her death and vanish for nearly 2 decades. The DNA test had shattered her identity. Now she wanted to know how deep the lies went. What she found instead was the legal contract that changed everything. Claire's last will and testament. The language was dense, written in the cold, detached tone of lawyers long dead. But as Emily read it, the words began to make horrific sense. In the event of my disappearance or presumed death, the contents of the Graves family trust, estimated at $8.2 million in diversified assets and properties, shall pass to my biological child, if identified and verified by legal DNA testing, under the following conditions. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Said child must reach the age of 18 with no criminal record and must accept the inheritance under the name Emily Graves, the name given at birth. If Claire Graves is legally declared dead before the child's 18th birthday and no contest has been filed, full access to the estate is granted upon the child's legal coming of age. If, however, Claire Graves returns and files a contest prior to the child's 18th birthday, the inheritance shall revert to Claire Graves under stipulations of mental fitness and surviving kinship. The paper trembled in Emily's hands. It was all a game, a twisted, legal chess match. Claire didn't want her daughter back. She wanted her money, her power, and Emily? Emily was the temporary key, the placeholder, until Claire could reclaim the fortune without a fight. This wasn't just about betrayal or bloodlines anymore. This was about a deadline. She had 10 months left. 10 months before her 18th birthday. 10 months to figure out how to stop a woman who'd faked her own death, manipulated the law, and orchestrated her daughter's entire life from the shadows. Emily dropped into the desk chair, her knees weak. Everything started to fit together now. The timing of the divorce, the anonymous gifts, the sudden arrival of Mr. Collins next door, the letters, the journal. Claire had been watching, calculating, making sure the pieces lined up just right, letting Emily grow up just enough, filling out her identity, giving her a name, a life, and now, a target on her back. Her mom stood in the doorway, silent for a long time, then spoke with a heaviness that shook Emily to her core. I found out about the clause after she disappeared, she said softly. She left it with her attorney, assuming she'd be declared dead within a few years. The only reason we didn't was because, somewhere, deep down, I always feared she'd come back. She wrote this like it was a plan, Emily said bitterly, like she wanted to disappear. She did, and she wanted you to be old enough to carry the key before she came back to take it from you. Emily stared down at the clause again. Her name was printed there, in black ink, like a brand. So many things made sense now. Why her mother had tried to legally separate her from her father. Why they'd kept secrets about her birth. Why Mr. Collins, Claire's son, her half-brother, had suddenly shown up. It was all about the trust, the clause, the countdown, and now the clock was ticking louder than ever. Emily looked up at her mother, voice raw. What happens if she files a contest before my birthday? Her mother looked her straight in the eye. Then she gets everything. Emily folded the document and slid it back into the lockbox. No, she whispered. She doesn't. The knock came on a Wednesday. It was early, too early for a visitor, and the sound felt deliberate, patient, almost polite. Emily was eating toast at the kitchen table, her appetite destroyed by the revelations that had buried her in the days since opening the inheritance clause. Her mother was upstairs, speaking to a lawyer on the phone about protective filings. Emily rose slowly, heart thudding, her skin prickling as if her body knew something her mind hadn't caught up to yet. She peeked through the frosted glass of the front door. A woman stood there, back straight, blonde hair tied back in a long, neat braid, sunglasses, a white trench coat, too elegant for a neighbor, too calm for a stranger. Emily's heart stopped. She opened the door. Claire stood on the porch like a ghost who'd read all the headlines written about her death and chosen to walk into them anyway. "You look just like me at your age," she said, lips curled in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emily couldn't speak. Her throat locked, her stomach flipped, and her mind scattered like glass thrown against concrete. She had imagined this moment 100 different ways, screaming, crying, running, hugging. But now, staring into the face of the woman who had orchestrated the chaos of her life, all she could do was stand still. Claire took off her sunglasses slowly, revealing sharp green eyes. Too sharp, too familiar. "You're wondering why I'm here." Emily nodded faintly. Claire stepped inside without being invited, brushing past her with a scent of roses and ash. "I figured I owed you a proper introduction," she said. "You've read about me, seen the pieces your mother let survive. But I'm not a story in a journal or a name on a trust fund, Emily. I'm your mother." "Biological mother," Emily snapped. Claire's expression didn't flinch. Touché. Her mother appeared at the top of the stairs like she'd been summoned by the devil herself. Her voice was tight. "Get out of my house, Claire. Still playing gatekeeper, I see," Claire said calmly. "After all these years. I didn't come for you, I came for what's mine. You have no right." "Oh, but I do." Claire turned back to Emily, her voice softening. "I left everything to you for a reason. You were supposed to grow up without me so you could inherit freely. But your mother," she turned sharply, "she couldn't help herself. She never could. Always needed to control what wasn't hers." "I raised her because you disappeared," Emily's mother said, voice cracking. "You didn't just leave. You staged your death. You abandoned her." Claire's smile flickered, just for a second. "You think I didn't watch?" "I did. I watched every birthday from a distance. I knew she was safe. That was the deal. She'd grow up, she'd sign the papers, and everything would go according to plan." Emily finally found her voice. "What plan?" Claire turned to her, almost tenderly. "The plan to protect what's ours, the Graves legacy. Our family's wealth, our name, our strength. Your grandmother wanted the estate to die with her, unless it was passed on to a worthy heir. She didn't think I was worthy. So I gave her a child, you, and made sure you'd grow into someone who could take it all." Emily's stomach turned. "You didn't want me. You wanted what I could do for you." Claire didn't deny it. "You're smart," she said. "Smarter than I was at your age. You don't need me to tell you what family really means. It's not about love. It's about legacy." "No," Emily whispered. "It's about lies. And you built mine from the ground up." Claire's expression hardened. The softness vanished. "I'm not here for sentiment. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. You can either cooperate, or you can watch the truth destroy everything your mother tried to protect. I have proof, records, letters. I can take this to court tomorrow and claim my rights. Or we can work together." Emily stared at her. "You want me to help you?" Claire stepped closer. "I want you to choose the winning side." And then she was gone. Just like that. The door swung shut behind her with a quiet click. Emily turned to her mother. "I think," she said shakily, "we just met the real Claire." Her mother sank into a chair, pale and speechless. But Emily? Emily didn't feel fear. She felt fire. The courtroom was cold, too cold, like someone had deliberately lowered the thermostat to chill the blood. Emily sat in the front row, stiff in a navy blazer borrowed from her mother, her hands clenched in her lap as she watched the woman who had once faked her own death smile calmly from the plaintiff's table. Claire Graves, no longer a memory, no longer a ghost, alive, poised, and suing for everything. The suit was a double strike, petitioning the court to declare Claire mentally fit and legally reinstated as Emily's custodial parent, despite 17 years of absence, and simultaneously requesting the court delay or revoke Emily's inheritance access, citing fraud and concealment by her adoptive mother. To the world, it was just another twisted estate battle. To Emily, it was war. Claire's attorney, a smug man in a silver tie with courtroom flair and a mouthful of daggers, opened with a simple statement. My client was robbed of both her fortune and her child. She comes to this court not for revenge, but for justice. Emily's mother, seated beside her lawyer at the defense table, barely looked up. She was pale, thinner than usual, her hands shaking as she scribbled notes she might never use. This wasn't a trial of facts. It was a trial of perception. Claire had spent years preparing for this. She looked the part, played it with precision. The court examined the timeline. Claire's disappearance at 27. The official death certificate filed 5 years later, after no sightings and no contact. Emily's birth within that time, registered under her mother's name, with no mention of Claire. The inheritance clause activated automatically. No one had expected her return. But now she was back, and she wanted not just her money, but her daughter. She was never there, Emily finally snapped during her statement to the judge. She left. She let me grow up thinking she was dead. I didn't even know she was my biological mother until a few weeks ago. Claire didn't flinch. If anything, her gaze softened, like she was watching an emotional child spiral. It made Emily want to scream. The judge, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes but a sharp tongue, listened patiently. "Ms. Graves," she said, addressing Claire, "what do you expect to gain by declaring custody of a nearly grown daughter?" Claire smiled thinly. "I expect to gain back what was stolen. If Emily chooses to stay with her adoptive mother, I won't force her, but I do intend to restore legal truth to our relationship. My rights as a parent were denied without due process." That was when Emily's mother dropped the bombshell. She stood, hands steady now, voice eerily calm. "Your Honor, I have a recording," she said, "from the week Claire disappeared. A voicemail she left me. She gave up her rights, voluntarily. She said, and I quote, 'She's yours now. I'm done being a Graves.'" Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Claire's smile faltered, just briefly. The judge narrowed her eyes. "Do you have the recording?" "I do." They played it. Claire's voice echoed across the courtroom, raw, bitter, unmistakable. "I can't do this anymore. I don't want her. You wanted a child. Now you have one. Don't look for me. Don't come after me. This is the only gift I have left to give you." Emily felt something shift. The courtroom suddenly didn't seem so cold. Her mother looked over at her, her eyes full of pain, but also relief. For once, the truth was on their side. Claire stood, desperate to speak. "I was under duress. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in danger." The judge held up a hand. "Enough. We'll reconvene tomorrow for closing arguments." As the gavel hit the desk, Claire turned toward Emily, her expression no longer composed. It was venom. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Emily rose slowly, looked her in the eye, and whispered, "Neither do you." Emily had come to expect betrayal, but she hadn't expected it to come from someone who made her laugh. It happened in fragments, moments that didn't seem to matter at first. A glance that lingered too long, a story repeated with different details, a question asked too carefully. Mr. Collins had been the only person in this chaos who felt safe, the one steady presence when her parents fell apart, when Claire returned like a ghost with claws. He had been kind, present, attentive, always there with quiet reassurance and cryptic wisdom. And then, one afternoon, Emily found the photograph. She hadn't been snooping. She was dropping off cookies, her mother's peace offering after the last court hearing, and Mr. Collins wasn't home. The front door was ajar. His dog, Oliver, barked at her like he expected her. She stepped inside to leave the box in the kitchen and saw it. A framed picture on the hallway table. Claire, smiling. Younger, but unmistakable. Next to her stood a boy. 12, maybe 13. Sharp chin, piercing eyes. The same eyes as Mr. Collins. Emily's heart seized. She lifted the frame, turned it over. A note in faded ink. Claire and Caleb, Summer House, 2006. Her hand went numb. The box of cookies dropped to the floor, forgotten. Caleb Collins. Not a neighbor. Not a stranger. Claire's son. Her half-brother. The moment hit like a car crash. Loud, disorienting, impossible to unsee. Every memory with him suddenly sharpened. How he always asked about her mother. How he knew details about Claire's disappearance that he claimed came from town gossip. How he had shown up just before the anonymous gifts began. How he'd warned her not to trust anyone. Because he couldn't be trusted. She was halfway out the door when she heard his voice. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." She turned slowly. Caleb stood in the doorway, calm as ever, hands in the pockets of his coat. "How long?" she asked, voice shaking. "How long have you been lying to me?" "I never lied," he said. "I just didn't tell you everything." "Everything?" she spat. "You're my brother. I'm your half-brother. Technicalities matter in families like ours." She laughed bitterly. "Wow, you sound just like her." He flinched. "I'm not her." "No, then why are you helping her? Why are you here?" He looked down, then up again, expression suddenly vulnerable. "Because I needed to know who you were. If you were just another pawn, like she always said, or something more." Emily's breath caught. "You were testing me?" He stepped forward. "I didn't want to believe her. I thought maybe you'd turn out different. Better." "Well, surprise," she snapped. "I'm not better. I'm furious. And I want you gone." "I didn't come to hurt you," he said, voice quiet. "You were the only part of this I didn't hate." Tears blurred her vision. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because truth in our family is just another weapon, and I didn't want to be the one to cut you open." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "What is that?" "Everything Claire doesn't want you to know. About her plan, about the inheritance, about what happened the night she disappeared." Emily stared at it like it might explode. "Why would you give this to me?" "Because it's time someone ended this. And if anyone can, it's you." He walked past her, quiet and slow. At the door, he paused. "I'm sorry, Em." He left. Emily stood in the empty house, the flash drive heavy in her palm. Her brother. Her betrayer. Her unexpected ally. The flash drive glinted in the light. Truth was finally within reach. But it came with a cost. Emily stared at the flash drive for hours before daring to plug it in. She waited until midnight, when her mother was asleep, when the silence of the house wrapped around her like a warning. She sat at the dining table, the same one where her birthday had imploded, where truth had shattered her idea of family piece by piece. The screen blinked to life. One folder, labeled for Emily. Inside, dozens of files. Videos, documents, voicemails, scans of letters. A few were labeled in Caleb's careful handwriting. "Read this first. Claire's true plan, the will she forged, the real reason she gave you up." She opened the first document, a notarized letter from Claire, dated 3 months before Emily's birth. "I never wanted a child, but I wanted leverage, a name, a path back to what was taken from me. If I can't have the fortune, at least I'll control the one who inherits it." Emily's stomach turned. The next video was worse. A grainy recording from what looked like a motel room. Claire pacing, furious. "I gave her to my sister because I knew she'd raise her right. Raise her quiet. Keep her clean until I came back. It was supposed to be simple. Get the money when she turns 18. Fake my death, disappear for a while, let the estate activate. I was coming back for it all." Another file showed a forged will. Claire had created multiple versions of her trust, one giving full control of the estate to herself once Emily legally claimed it through power of attorney Claire had forged. Another version disinherited Emily entirely unless Claire was present at the signing. Every document painted a picture of a woman who had played every side. Emily sat back, sick to her core. She'd never been a daughter. She'd been a plan, a tool, a pawn in a long game between two sisters, bound by greed, betrayal, and an oath of silence that had cost lives. When she finally opened the last file, labeled "The Night of the Pact," her hands trembled. It was a journal entry, scanned in Claire's handwriting. "We buried him beneath the orchard. No one will ever find him. We made the pact in blood. She said she'd keep the secret forever. So I used it. I made it work for us. But she betrayed me. She raised the child like it was hers. She tried to cut me out of my own game. Emily will never know the truth unless someone tells her. But by then, it'll be too late. She'll either become one of us or destroy us both." Emily pushed away from the table. There it was, the final betrayal. The story hadn't started on her 17th birthday. It had started with a murder. A pact. A child. A lie. She looked at the living room, where pictures of birthdays and holidays now felt like props in a play. She looked at her mother asleep in the next room, the woman who had raised her with love, but also deception. She was days away from her 18th birthday. That was the deadline. If Claire was still alive by then, the inheritance would remain contested. If Claire was declared legally dead, Emily would receive it all, millions. She could expose Claire, use the flash drive, call the police, show the court. She could take the money, take control, take the power Claire wanted, and make sure neither woman ever got it. Or she could walk away, destroy the documents. Let the truth rot like the man under the orchard. She stood at the back door, flash drive still in hand. The night air was heavy with the scent of rain. Behind her, the house creaked like it was holding its breath. She pulled out her lighter, the one her father gave her before he left, clicked it open. A small flame. It danced on the edge of the drive. Then she hesitated, because maybe this was her moment to choose, not just between truth and lies, but between becoming what they made her or becoming something entirely different. Emily looked out at the dark horizon and made her choice.